Hello, welcome. In this video lecture, I'm going to demonstrate the website ERD Plus. ERD Plus is a website and tool that allows you to create entity relationship diagrams, relational schemas, and star schemas. This is primarily going to be a walkthrough. I'm not going to get into the theory of entity relationship diagrams. Plenty of places on the web that you can get that. I'll mention a few things in passing. But today I really just want to get you through the use of the tool, show you how to create an entity relationship diagram and a relational schema. I'm not going to cover star schemas in this walkthrough. So the first thing to do is to navigate to ERDPlus.com. There are two methods or modes of working with this tool. There's a standalone mode. You don't need to sign in. If you'll zip down to the bottom of the screen here, you'll see that the standalone mode, you can click that button there, work directly with it. You can export your work, you can't save it. If you create a login, a sign up, you'll have immediate access. There's no cost to this, no downside that I can see. It's a free tool. They don't keep your or share your information or anything. It's a free site. The advantage to signing up is that you can store your work online, and it also gives you access to an export of the database design if you use the relational schema in SQL, and you can use that to actually create a database in your choice of popular database systems, and I'll demonstrate that with Microsoft Access. So I'm going to demonstrate the login version of this so we can look at that SQL export, and we'll do that today. So let's go ahead and get started here. I've already logged in. We'll look at the diagrams page. I'm looking at a new blank tablet here, and we're going to start with an entity relationship diagram. So I'm going to click New. We're going to do a new entity relationship diagram. The first thing I'm going to do is rename this so we know what we're talking about. I'm going to call this ERD. And we're going to do a student course example. These are widely demonstrated in textbooks and on the web, so this will be a fairly familiar example to you. And I think just because this will export with this name, I'm going to make it all one word. That's probably a little bit easier to deal with. And then we will click the button to get into the workspace. Now, you're going to find that this is really pretty straightforward. It's not a difficult tool to work with. We're going to create two entities to start with, give them some attributes, and then create a relationship between them. So to create an entity, we click the entity button up here, click a spot on the workspace, and that's pretty much all there is to it. We have our choice over here in the table on the right of three types of entities: regular, weak, and associative. And now we need to add attributes. So we click the Add Attribute button over here. It adds the attribute. We'll give it a name. I'm going to click Student ID, type in that name. Now, it might be a little bit presumptuous at this point to assume that we're going to add what looks like a primary key here. I'm going to tag this unique since we are dealing with entities, and this is at the entity relationship diagrams are usually done at the conceptual design stage, and we don't really want to conflate entities with tables. We'll get to tables when we build the relational schema. But just for purposes of illustration, I'm going to go ahead and position that as what looks like a primary key. We're going to add some additional attributes. We will probably have a first name for this student. We will probably have a last name for this student. And we would have an address for this student, I'm thinking. I'm going to tag the address as multi-valued. That would probably break out when we get to the table design stages, city, state, street, zip, and so on. This just demonstrates that we can add these qualifiers to the attribute. I won't go into it more than that. At the table stage, this might actually get broken out into multiple tables. So again, that just demonstrates here we're working with entities, and later when we get to the table design stage, these might get broken out during the process of normalization. Now note that we can drag these around with our mouse to position them. We can also stack these attributes to make them look a little better. And let me do that here. All right, so we have our first entity here. Let's create another entity, course. So again, I'll tag the entity button here and just click on the position in the workspace where we would like it. I'll again add attributes. I'll add a course ID. Again, I'll make that unique, and we'll add a course name and a course number. And that's probably all we need for the purposes of this demonstration. So now we have two entities. I can name these entities, by the way. I should have done that to begin with. We'll call this one student, and we'll call this one course. And there we have our two entities. And now what we need to do is we need to create the relationship between them. And to do that, all we need really to do is to connect them. We could physically draw the relationship, or we can connect them, and the software will create the relationship for us. So if we click the connect button and drag them with our mouse, we create the relationship automatically. And so now we need to put in the parameters, or the aspects of our relationship. And of course, the first thing that we need to do is indicate the cardinality. And we're going to assume the simple case here that one student may take many courses. That's the normal kind of relationship, a one-to-many kind of relationship that we have. And so over here we can specify the cardinality. And let me reposition this here a little bit. This seems a little bit counterintuitive here. I'm going to indicate many down here. That's not the right one, so obviously I need to click one over here. That puts the little tick mark here over student. So one student may take many courses. And as I say, this seems a little bit backwards to me. Maybe I'm not thinking about it right. I would think I would put the one student would take many courses, but you can play around with that. That's just the way the software works. This is using crow's foot notation. We call it crow's foot because on the many side, this indication here looks a little bit like a foot of a crow, hence crow's foot notation. And that's cardinality, so one or many. And then, of course, the participation is optional or mandatory. This is sometimes called ordinality, so we can indicate whether this is optional or mandatory. So one or no students, 0 to 1 students may take 0 to many courses, or whether that's mandatory or not, from 1 to many courses if they have to take a course. So you can play around with those. We can also indicate, if we click the view exact constraints, if, for example, the maximum number of courses a student might be able to take would be 3, we could indicate that a student can take from 1 to a maximum of 3 courses, if that were the case here. So we're going to leave that alone for now. So that would be the simple case. And now what we're going to take a look at, of course, is this is a little bit oversimplified. In fact, many students can take courses, and what we really have in the case of the student course relationship, is that many students can take many courses. So what we have here is typically a many-to-many relationship. And as you know, or I hope you know, in the case of tables, when we're building tables and we have a many-to-many relationship, we would usually build the junction table in the middle, and that's how we handle many-to-many relationships at the table level. This, of course, is an entity relationship diagram. And the way we handle that at the entity relationship diagram stage is with what we call an associative entity. So let me take out this relationship and I'll show you how that works. And I'll pull these apart slightly. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to put in another entity here. And this entity type is going to be an associative entity, and it looks like that. And then what we need to do is build the relationship between this entity and the student, and this entity and the course. And that's going to look like this. So if I connect this entity with the course, and if I connect this entity with the student, let's first call this entity the student course registration. Pull that apart a little bit more. And then now let's build the relationship between those. And what we're going to find is that the relationship between course and this associative entity is one-to-many, and from the student to the student course registration, this what will be a junction table is also one-to-many. So let's build that then. And we have the many over here and the one here. And again, this one we have the the one over here and the many here. And that will perhaps make that a little bit clearer. And now I think you can see what that's going to look like when we actually get to the table design stage. And so that pretty much takes care of our entity relationship diagram. As I say, I'm not going to talk too much about the theory here of entity relationship diagrams, and I think you can see that you have quite a few options here. You can do labels. You have the exact constraints if you need to add them. But the building of the entity relationship diagram is fairly straightforward using this tool. Now, this is being saved here as we go. So this is saved in the workspace as you're logged in. If you care to, you could at this point export this as an image file. This creates a PNG. So if you wanted to save this as an image file, perhaps you're doing this as an assignment. Maybe your instructor would like you to turn this in. So you could save that as an image file. You can also export this as a diagram file in as a text file that this software would understand. If you were working in standalone mode, you could export this, close the workspace. It would not be saved within the workspace if you're not logged in, but you could import it later if you wanted to work at it at a later time. So this, but if you're working logged in, this is saved as you go. It indicates all saved. So let's go back to our diagram page, and this is saved here. So now let's move on to the relational schema. This is where we'll actually build our tables. So we're going to click New Relational Schema. And again, let's go ahead and rename this. So we'll call this schema student course. And again, we'll enter the workspace. This works very similarly. And what we're going to do this time is build the tables. And now the tables are usually built at the logical design stage. in preparation for the physical design stage where you would actually build this in the database itself. So we're going to create 3 tables based on our entity relationship diagram. And what we're going to do then, very similarly to how we created the entity relationship diagram, we're going to click on Table here and just click on the workspace. The first table we're going to create is the Students table, and we're going to call that Students. And now we need to add columns. Columns, we're going to create our student ID. And now you'll notice that in addition to the name, we also have the opportunity to specify the data type. And the data type here are your standard SQL data types. If you're familiar with MySQL, for example, or most of the other SQL database manager types, we can drop this down to take a look at them. These are your choices. These differ a little bit in access, and I'll cover that when we get toward the end of the lecture, because I'm going to show you how to put these into a Microsoft Access database. For example, varchar in standard SQL would correspond to the current Microsoft Access short text, and I'll show you how to convert that. But the student ID would be the key field. That would be the integer data type, so we'll leave that alone. We're going to add another one, the first name. I called that F name. That would be varchar, and that would be, let's say, 30 characters. We're going to add another one. That would be L name. That also would be varchar, and we'll leave 30 for that. And then I think for the last one, the address, I think we're just going to add zip at this point. That's probably what you would do in a well-normalized table, and then you'd have a lookup. We'll call that varchar, and maybe 10 characters for that. Okay, so those would be our fields. Then we need to designate a primary key. That would be student ID, and I think we're done with that. And now we need to add another table. That would be our junction table. And we'll stick that right here. And we will add just one field to that. That would be the registration ID. And we'll leave that integer. We need to designate that as the primary key. Now, of course, that's going to get the foreign keys from students and from courses. The software will actually add those. I'll show you how that works in just a second. So we're done with this one, and then we need to add the third table. Move these over a little bit. Need to add the third table, and that will be, let's name it here, that will be courses. We will add course ID. That will be integer. We need to add course name. And that will be varchar. And let's say 30 characters on that. And then we'll add course number. We'll leave that at integer. Let's designate the primary key. I think we're done with that. And then what we need to do is we need to connect these. And when we connect them, you'll note that when we connect students to the, oh, we didn't name this, did we? We'll call that student. And this is our junction table. When we connect students to our junction table, student course reg, it adds the foreign key. It adds the primary key from students as the foreign key to student course reg, which of course is exactly what we want. And we'll do the same thing with courses here. Alrighty, now we can take a look at diagrams again. It indicates that because we're working online here, it's saved everything. We have the same options we did before to export the image, export the diagram file. We can go back at diagrams and we see that we've got this here located in the new folder. We can, by the way, organize in folders. Here I could click new, get a new folder, drag these in and out, so this is kind of handy way to work the program. Let's go back to our student course schema here, and you may have noticed before that I do have an export here, and if I click this button, it actually creates the SQL necessary to build this table in a database management program, and we can copy this to the clipboard, and if you were in MySQL or another standard SQL program, you would probably know what to do this. It may not be quite as obvious what you would do with this in Microsoft Access. So let's fire up Microsoft Access and show you what you might do with that. So we'll create a blank desktop database. Go ahead and create. We'll close out the default table. And now here's the trick to creating this in Microsoft Access. We can go into Create and go into Query Design. And now we can just close the Show Table dialog. We don't need that. And what we need to do is go into the SQL view and get into the Query Open page where we could enter SQL. Then we need to go into Notepad, and we're going to paste the SQL that we got from the ERD Plus. Remember, we copied this to the clipboard and we've pasted it into Notepad. And this will allow us to copy these into Microsoft Query and execute them. So we're going to have to do these one at a time. Here's Notepad, and we're going to have to make one adjustment first because Microsoft Access is not going to like this varchar. But it does like char, so the first thing we need to do is edit and replace. And what we need to do is replace varchar with char and replace all. And that's really the only change we need to make, and then these will execute. So let's copy them one at a time, and I'm just gonna copy. Let me actually move this over, position it better so you can see what's going on. I'm going to copy that, and then in Access I'm going to paste it, and then I just need to execute that. And when I execute that, it created the first table. Then I need to go back to Notepad. I'm going to copy the second one. I'm going to go back to Access and paste it over the first query that we executed. Run it again, and you can see that it creates students. I'm going to do that with the third one. Copy. Go back to Access. Paste it in. Run it, and it creates the third one. So then we don't need our query anymore. We can close that, and we don't need to save the that query. And then if we look at, for example, one of these tables in design mode, we can see that it created the courses with the correct data types, short text and all that. And furthermore, if we go look at the database tools and our relationship editor, it created the correct relationship. So now we have the correct junction table with a correct one-to-many and many-to-one relationships here. So that's how you use ERD Plus, both to create the entity relationship diagrams and the relational schemas, and how, if you want to, you can also actually use that software to go and instantiate your relational schema into an Access database. So I hope this has been helpful and that you will be able to use the ERD Plus with your database creation. There are plenty of other tools out there that do this. The ERD Plus is a free tool, and of course the preferred tool to use with Microsoft Access is Visio. Visio is a very full-featured, sophisticated tool, but it's also very much not free. So this should be a good alternative, especially for students and so on working in courses. So again, hope this has been helpful. Have a good time with your ERDs, and thank you very much for watching.